I don't believe it. It's great being here with all of you today, and what an honor for Haley, because we were a good team during all of these disasters. There's been a lot of water under and over the bridges since Haley's been governor, and I have to say I've been on a fast learning curve, but I, like Nick and Craig Fugates, I've learned an awful lot about Mississippi and the people, and it's been reinforced with every disaster that we are a great people, and the way we respond and react to these disasters shows what character we have. A lot of people deserve a lot of credit around here. Haley's staff deserves a lot of credit. There's one guy in particular that really is a hands-on person that helps connect MEMA, FEMA with the people of Mississippi, and that's Ashley Edwards over here. A real trooper. Plus Haley, that has the great memory. As most wives, I would have to say, it's not as good as it is for some people. I'm tickled to death this building's named for him, because he has been one that has listened to me when it comes to disasters. And he is the one that can get the stuff done when I ask him. Sometimes 2 or 3 times, but I haven't had to cry much. I'm going to turn it over to Haley.
You can tell I sure didn't want her to go after me. To all of you, thank you. For the legislators, and I see a number of them here in the audience who voted to name this building for me, I am honored. It is genuinely an honor to have you name on a building that is very little known to Mississippians, but at critical times is enormously important to Mississippians' lives. Mike made the point that this is the MEMA headquarters, but more importantly, it's the State Emergency Operations Center. And I can remember the days leading up to Katrina, we were still in the National Guard building. This building had not been finished, and we were just standing on top of each other. This state-of-the-art facility, the credit largely goes to Robert. And I've told him a bunch of times, if I'd have been governor, they'd have never spent as much money on this deal as they did. And he said, oh, it was all federal money, Governor. And I said, well, I still wouldn't have let you spend it. But seriously, this is a phenomenal facility. And when, Reverend, we have a huge spate of tornadoes, like at your hometown, or when we have a hurricane in the Gulf, or when the Mississippi River is over flood stage for weeks and weeks and weeks, and thousands of acres in the Delta are underwater. And for the first time since 1937, the river levee system itself is threatened, Terry. This place hums. And it hums because our MEMA team is spectacular. They're not good. And I think they're better than great. Now, Wes may not want me to tell this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. You may know that at Smithville in Monroe County, which was obliterated by the tornado, is almost literally on the Alabama line. And he has related to me how they get the kind of help they do from MEMA, the other state agencies, and the nonprofits, and that they feel bad for the little towns across the state line in Alabama. Not because they aren't trying hard, not because they aren't good people, but that MEMA is so good that they understand what to do and how to do it, that they have been able to make so much more progress. And it's an honor for me to have my name on a building that houses that kind of team. I see Adjutant General of the National Guard. I see the head of Employment Security. There are many senior State Department and agency officials here. Some of you don't realize that after Katrina, it wasn't just MEMA, but it was almost every state agency. Whether it was the Bureau of Narcotics and the Highway Patrol, Marshal, or the National Guard had guys on the ground when the storm hit, 800 more in within a few days. Or Don Thompson at HHS, they literally had people, it happened to be all women, but people who stayed in a motel in Columbia, got up every morning at 4 o'clock and went to the coast to serve the people that are the constituents and the beneficiaries of DHS programs, and went back and home every night, went back to Columbia every night. The people who handed out their unemployment checks in parking lots on the coast from Less's people, because the building wasn't there anymore. But the people needed help. And all of these departments and agencies, they just did what had to be done. Very consistent with what the people of Mississippi did what had to be done. Roger Wicker spoke to it, and I thought eloquently. Really bad disasters bring out the best in most people, but they bring out the real character of everybody. And when we were hit by the worst natural disaster in American history, an utter obliteration on the coast. When you're from Diamond Head, it doesn't take much to trigger your memory of the utter obliteration that came through. And yet, within hours, it was clear that we were going to be fine. That it was going to be hard. It was going to be long. It was going to be expensive. That we needed partners. We needed partnerships from our other states who were just stupendously generous, sending their law enforcement, their National Guard, their emergency responders, their search and rescue teams. I can see in my mind right now, the day after the storm, the #1 search and rescue team from Ohio was in Gulfport on Tuesday after the storm on Monday. Or the Rhode Island urban rescue team that was there within 2 days. Just unbelievable what states did for us. And while FEMA got a lot of criticism, let me tell you what, they were great partners. They did some things wrong. They had some systems to fail. Let me tell you what, so did we. And so did every town, and every county, and every organization. Anybody that tells you that you can take a direct hit from the worst natural disaster in American history and everything's going like it's planned, well, they just don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, FEMA had some bumps in the road, but I'm going to tell you, they did a whole lot more right than they did wrong. They solved the problems as we went along, and then they have been good partners to us. The federal government, in the Bush administration and in the Obama administration, has tried very hard to be a good partner. HUD, somebody that we've had enormous dealings with, just have been great to work with in both administrations. The private sector is part of this. I'm glad that Mike mentioned that. First, the nonprofits, the traditional people that come to Americans Rescue, whether it's the Red Cross, the Salvation Army. You could go through the religious groups. I have so many great memories of religious organizations and events that happened in the first few months after the storm. But I also recognize there are people that still are coming. There are churches in the United States that sent groups this summer to help us get fully rebuilt. This building is a tribute to them and to the private sector, to corporate America. You know, I guess it's altogether fitting and proper that the greatest natural disaster in American history would bring out the greatest outpouring of philanthropy and corporate giving in American history. You know, our Katrina Recovery Fund raised $35 million of private sector money. And that doesn't include the things that the pharmaceutical industry gave Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana, gave us about $110 million worth of free drugs after the storm. And that's just one industry. That was repeated in industry after industry after industry. All of this is in remembrance of those people. Also, rightly, a tribute to Marcia. Terry, I appreciate Phil's putting on the plaque for Haley and Marcia. I was sort of the macro person here, but Marcia was very clearly the micro person here. Marcia made sure people got what they needed. Not largely, but entirely people that couldn't help themselves. People who didn't know where to go. People, that's how she met Nick Russo. Because once she found out he was in charge of helping people, she got his cell phone. Anthony Topazzi was the head of Mississippi Power at the time. Those of you that are familiar with the electricity world, every electric utility has an area that the public service tells them to operate under. So Mississippi Power doesn't have all of the coastal counties. Singing River Electric Power has some. Coastal Electric Power has some. Well, Marcia would call Anthony, who's the president of Mississippi Power, and say, Anthony, you need to get a crew over. So they've got this trailer set up for some people to live in, but don't have any electricity. You need to get your crew over there to do it. And he'd say, well, Marcia, that's not in our service area. And Marcia would say, now, Andy, don't start making excuses. Topazzi says to this day, they probably put in electricity for 1,000 houses that they didn't serve because of Marcia. And I am always grateful for how the coast recognized her and still recognizes her. And I always say that if I'd had to run against her for re-election on the coast, I'd have gotten beat 5-1. But it is the Haley and Marcia Barbour center to me. Let me close by saying something about the future of Mississippi. When I ran for governor in 2003, I used to say that Mississippi was the most underestimated state in the country, and Mississippians the most underestimated people. And I said the worst part of that is often it is we who underestimate ourselves. Katrina changed that for the world and for America. Our image, and we've suffered from a generally negative image all of my life, nothing has done as much to help Mississippi's image as the response of Mississippians in the wake of Katrina. We would complain that New Orleans was on TV all the time and Mississippi wasn't covered as much, and it wasn't, but it was covered enough. It was covered enough for the people of the United States and the world to see these strong, resilient, self-reliant people, compassionate and courageous. Because as I said earlier, the very bad disaster, the mega disaster, brings out the true character and spirit of everybody. You find out what everybody's made out of. And what America found out is Mississippians are not whiners. We don't mope. We're not looking for a handout. what we're going to do is get up, hitch up our britches, and go back to work. Most importantly, working for ourselves, but also to help our neighbors. How many times, I can't tell you how many times, the story would come back to me of some family or some person who would say to the first responders, no, I'm okay, give that to the person who needs it more. The people in Hurley whose house was totally inundated, still standing, took their washing machine outside because the house was so terrible. And they were trying to find clothes and linens and wash them in the washing machine by hand. Highway Patrol came by and asked them, could we help them and give them some stuff? They said, no, give it to somebody that needs it worse. Can you imagine? Marcia stopped and killed. There was a little double wide on the side of the road with a couple of little kids playing in the front yard. Marcia had noticed that in the FEMA supplies, mostly there's nothing for children. They don't have baby stuff. They don't have diapers and formula and all that. So everywhere she went, they'd have a couple of highway patrolmen with her or narcotics agents, and in the back of the pickup truck be full of baby stuff. So Marcia, they come around a curve, and there are these kids playing in the yard, little tykes, and so she knew she'd hit the jackpot. They pulled over, the man comes out, turns out a man and his wife and 8 children lived in this double wide, which Marcia said looked like a beer can. It just twisted. Unbelievable. So the guys started getting out some stuff for him. After a little while, the man says, oh, that's enough for us. And the trooper said, that's okay, we got plenty. We got plenty for y'all. He said, well, if you got plenty, take it to the little old lady across the road who's a shut-in. I know nobody's been able to help her. They said, okay, well, look, we got plenty for her. And then the man said, well, look, if you got plenty, if you go down this road a little bit, there's a dirt road that turns back to the right real sharp. You got to be careful you don't miss it. But there are about 6 houses back there. Take it to them. I know nobody's been able to find them. Now here's some people that didn't have anything before the storm. They lost what they had. And their attitude was, give it to the little old lady across the road who's a shut-in. That spirit and character absolutely stands for the Mississippians that the world saw after Katrina. Those are the people that this building, this center, exists to help when they need help. And I'm truly honored and grateful that y'all or the legislature would choose to name it for me. Thank you very much.